Thanks for joining me, Steve.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So, in this book, you talk about a lot of the aspects of the study of memory and the work that sort of like has permitted the field to build our current understanding of how memory works in the brain. But this is also a really personal book that deals with your journey within neuroscience and also the relationship that you develop with your collaborator and friend, neuroscientist Xu Liu. And that makes it a little bit different than other books that we've excerpted before. Why did you decide to take this sort of like hybrid approach when writing the book?
Yeah, the reason I wanted to take a hybrid approach to writing this book is because I think that hybrid approach more accurately just captured my journey as a person and as a scientist. And I really wanted to give as close to a 360-degree view of myself as a person and scientist in the field and throughout all the discoveries that Shu and I had made together. I think another reason is because it's been a childhood dream of mine to write a book. And to be honest, for most of my life, I did not know what I was going to write any book about. I just knew that I wanted to write one. And then my story with Shu gave me this like really intimate but scientifically grounded account of the work that we did together, what it means to be sort of brothers in arms here doing neuroscience together, and to really go through the triumphs and challenges of a field together as well, and to really deal with some of the headier themes of the book, like memories and how they outlast us and so on as well. So that gave me a lot that I really wanted to convey in the book as much as possible.
So the excerpt that from your book that we published today goes into a little bit of that and details sort of like the first time that you and Zhu's memory manipulations experiments worked. And it's a really cool anecdote that showcases the thrill that researchers feel when they get an experiment to work for the first time in the lab, but also the immediate aftermath, right? Talking about like what controls you need to do and also talking about how to present this work to your lab mates in the lab meeting. Can you talk to me a little about this anecdote and specifically when did you know you wanted to use this anecdote in the book?
Yeah. So I knew that I wanted to use this anecdote in the book kind of from the beginning because it was our first steps into artificially manipulating a memory and being able to successfully do so. And I remember this day in like high definition 4K, like with doing these experiments with Shu. And I really wanted to convey the thrill and the excitement of like, wow, this experiment actually worked. And we had every reason to believe it wasn't going to work. And then also the kind of the aftermath that follows, which is okay, we have a finding now, but we gotta get past the litmus test of presenting in front of the lab and then seeing if everybody is on the same page with us in terms of our data and our interpretation of the data. And at that time, I I hated public speaking more than anything else. It was just the worst thing imaginable. So I was super nervous, thinking like, okay, not only do I have to give lab meeting to the lab, but I'm giving lab meeting with Shu and about this discovery that we made. So it's just multiple hurdles that we had to cross here.
You didn't actually, and you laid out in an expert that you didn't actually reach the area of the brain that you wanted to in the
Yeah,
hippocampus
yeah.
specifically, you know? Uh, um, so, uh, um, can you talk a little bit about sort of like that process with you and like when those experiments came together?
For sure. So we had five animals, five mice that were implanted with optic fibers into the hippocampus, which is where we thought we could artificially stimulate a memory. Each mouse was named OF1, OF2, OF3, OF4, OF5. So this was good the early days in doing these surgeries on trying to engineer brain cells to respond to pulses of light and to try to capture cells that were involved in forming a particular memory. So when we did these surgeries, the surgeries went great. What we found out after the fact was that in four out of the five animals where we did this surgery, that surgery, they all of those went according to plan. And we hit a part of the hippocampus that unfortunately, when we turned the light on to try to activate these memory bearing cells, nothing happened. So we thought like, okay, that stinks, but this is, I mean, science is hard and it does never going to work on the first try anyways. And on the fifth animal, OF5, that one we saw something totally different, and that's the one where we saw uh, pretty remarkable evidence of the animal recalling the memory that we were hoping to artificially stimulate. So the big kind of the take home message of that was there's a couple, which was one was that it was a bit of an accident, and the size of that accident is like the thickness of a cocktail straw, because during our surgeries in mouse OF5, we went like 150 microns deeper than we had intended to and hit the wrong part of the hippocampus. In the other four animals, the surgeries, again, they went according to plan and we hit the right part of the hippocampus. The problem was that the right part that we were aiming for was where nothing worked. And then the wrong part that we accidentally hit was like, it was literally the launching pad for the rest of our careers. And I like this anecdote in particular because it goes to show that it's not a matter of just hard work or just good luck. It's both,
Yeah.
right? It's like you make your own luck here. And with mouse OF5, like I write in the book that at some point in life, I'd like to think we all get our mouse OF5, that we get our version of our own triumph or discovery that really pushes some boundary forward.
So, your book seems that it could help people sort of like deal with loss, and but it's also really informative about science, right? It takes these like two like different approaches. So, as we sort of finish up here, what are you hoping the reader takes away from this book? Whether they're a neuroscientist who just like is familiar with your work and wants to learn more, or whether they're a non-neuroscientist who's just like interested in learning about the science of memory.
Probably the biggest thing that I hope any reader connects with the book is that it's never just a human or just a scientist making discoveries, that it's both, that these things are intertwined, that it's always a person doing the science, and then that person has their version of highs and lows and triumphs and loss and grief and so on. And all the ways that that changes a person can change how we view our worldview and how we conduct ourselves in science. So after our experiments, for instance, and after my time with Shu, like, one of the things that I learned that I hope to convey in the book is that our discoveries and our data points and our influence in the world, like our collective influence in the world, inevitably outlasts us, right? Like, humanity is fragile, but discoveries and truths about the world do they transcend our biology, and they just kind of go on and exist in the pantheon of truths forever. And what I learned in that process is that it's not just these discoveries about memory manipulation that I carry with me, but it's the memory of my friend and the memory of these discoveries that we did together, and how a person really lives on in the architecture of your brain. And I learned to carry that and then be comfortable carrying that forward in life, because initially it's certainly the opposite of comfortable, and um, among the hardest things that anyone has to do, really. But over time, there's a way that I'd like to think that there's a way that we really grow our lives by giving ourselves more memories to make and to share. And like with this book, I get to share the very privileged time that I had with a close friend, and hope to convey the remarkable influence that he had on me. And hopefully, in some way, there's some very like humanity centered dots here that connect between Shu and myself and the reader, maybe even in surprising ways. And if the book can do that, then for me, it's as fulfilling and purposeful as it gets.
That's fantastic, Steve. Well, thank you for talking with me a little bit about your book. I really enjoyed it, and I'm really curious to see what the neurosciences community thinks about it. So, thanks again for joining me, Steve.
This was great. Thanks so much for the opportunity. I really value it. Thank you.
Awesome. Bye.
The Transmitter.